Welcome to the Lore Vault. Snow drifts softly across the silhouette of Hogwarts, settling on ancient stone like a quiet memory. The corridors hum with distant footsteps, and above the great hall, candles float in slow, gentle orbits, each flame breathing warmth into the winter dark. In the wizard's Christmas, ice never chills, snow never quite touches the ground, and the old suits of armor murmur half-remembered carols as if the castle itself were dreaming. Wherever you are, resting in bed or curled into a late-night chair, let me guide you through this enchanted winter. If you enjoy these journeys, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from, what time it is, and the topics you'd love to explore. Your thoughts may guide our next adventure. To understand Christmas in the wizarding world, one must first understand that it is never merely a date on the calendar. It functions instead as a quiet instrument, an emotional barometer, measuring the shifting soul of a world built from magic, memory, and the fragile hope carried by its inhabitants. When we look closely at each Christmas across the Harry Potter timeline, we begin to see a pattern. The holiday's warmth, its light, and its atmosphere change in lockstep with the state of the wizarding world itself. Every decorated hall, every feast, every silent snowfall becomes a reflection of deeper truths unfolding beneath the surface. In the early years, Christmas appears almost idyllic, and nowhere is this more evident than at Hogwarts. The castle embodies the idealized sanctuary, a place where magic softens the edges of winter, where enchanted snow twirls gently overhead without ever touching the ground, and where towering fir trees shimmer in golden light. For Harry, who arrives from a loveless home, it is his first experience of belonging. But Hogwarts is not simply celebrating. It is performing an ancient ritual of reassurance. Its warmth tells the children, here for a moment, the world is safe. Yet as we expand our gaze beyond the Great Hall, each location reveals a different emotional register. The burrow radiates a humble, cluttered warmth, an affirmation that love and family thrive even in modest spaces. But Grimmauld Place, with its suffocating hallways and dim lamps, twists the holiday into something weary and brittle. Godric's Hollow transforms Christmas into a pilgrimage of grief, while St. Mungo's exposes the fracture lines of war beneath the tinsel and wreaths. These places are more than settings. They are emotional climates, shaped by the fears and hopes of those who inhabit them. And so, the holiday becomes a diagnostic tool. To ask, what is Christmas like this year, is to ask, how sick or healthy is the wizarding world? Warmth means relative safety. Silence means tension. Coldness means the shadow of war has fallen. In this way, Christmas acts as a symbolic seismograph, tracing the rising tremors of conflict long before they fully erupt. When we consider this, a deeper realization emerges. Wizarding Christmas is not bound to the same traditions that shape Muggle celebrations. There is no Santa Claus, no spiritual doctrine, no nativity scenes tucked beside staircases. Instead, Wizarding Christmas is the result of cultural layering, centuries of blended customs, reshaped by magical communities who adopted the surface aesthetics of Muggle winters while retaining their own ancient practices beneath them. The result is a festival rooted more in Yule and the winter solstice than in Christian theology. This is why Hogwarts feels less like a church and more like a living ritual site. Its walls, staircases, and enchanted ceilings act as conduits for communal memory. Each candlelit corridor is part of a greater organism, an entity that has seen 1,000 winters and carries the imprint of each one. The castle does not simply host Christmas, it participates in it. The Great Hall becomes a ceremonial chamber, echoing with tradition. Floating candles are not decorations, but symbols of vigilance. The enchanted snow overhead moves in a controlled cycle, representing the delicate balance between danger and protection. Even the suits of armor, crooning imperfect carols, feel like guardians carrying forward the remnants of forgotten rites. The objects exchanged at Christmas deepen this ritualistic texture. A Weasley jumper is not merely clothing, it is a statement of belonging, a woven bond of generosity within a world fractured by inequality. An invisibility cloak is not simply a tool, it is an inheritance, a living piece of a father's love, arriving precisely when Harry needs it. Wizard crackers, with their unpredictable explosions and improbable gifts, express the wizarding world's refusal to be constrained by Muggle norms. Each object is symbolic, each carries emotional weight, and collectively they form a material grammar, an unspoken language through which affection, heritage, and identity are communicated. Seen this way, the Wizarding Christmas is a living ceremonial engine. It transforms space, reshapes emotion, and aligns people with the deeper rhythms of their world. It reminds them that magic is not only a power, but a responsibility, one tied closely to memory and community. But at the heart of this evolving tradition lies a question that grows more complex with each passing year. Where does the true light of Christmas come from? Is it born from the enchantments that illuminate the hallways? Or does it rise from something older, softer, more human? In the early books, the answer seems simple. Magic provides comfort. Snow charms dance overhead. Feasts appear with a clap. Presents materialize at the foot of the bed. For a child like Harry, these wonders feel like the embodiment of hope. They are the antidote to the years of neglect he endured, and they signal a new beginning. But as the story matures, the meaning of the holiday shifts. The warmth of the Great Hall begins to feel fragile. Lights shine, yet shadows linger at their edges. By the middle years, Christmas is no longer carefree, but tinged with tension. Friendships strain, secrets unfold, and the rising threat of Voldemort steals something from the air, an innocence that will never fully return. Eventually, even Hogwarts cannot shield its students. Christmas becomes quieter, lonelier, marked by fear rather than festivity. By the final book, the holiday transforms completely. There is no castle, no feast, no enchanted sky. Instead, Harry stands at a grave on Christmas Eve, snow muffling the world into a silence that feels sacred. He is older now, carrying burdens that have reshaped him. Here, in the stripped-down winter landscape, he discovers what Christmas truly means in the wizarding world. Not celebration, but remembrance. Not glittering warmth, but the fierce resilience to seek light, even when surrounded by darkness. In this moment, Christmas is no longer a backdrop for magical joy. It becomes an inner ritual, a reckoning with loss, a confrontation with destiny, and a quiet reaffirmation of love's enduring imprint. It reveals that the magical world's truest source of illumination does not come from spells, candles, or enchanted snow. It comes from people, from the bonds they forge, the memories they carry, and the courage they hold on to when the world asks too much of them. Across every book, Christmas becomes a compass pointing toward these deeper truths. It reveals who feels safe, who feels alone, who is growing up, and who is slowly slipping away. It measures the temperature of the wizarding world's spirit at every stage of its long, turbulent story. And so, when we re-enter Hogwarts during its winter season, when the first snowfall drifts across the Forbidden Forest and lights flicker in the Great Hall, we are not simply witnessing a festive scene. We are witnessing a world taking its own pulse, a world asking itself whether the warmth it once held can survive another year, a world balancing the weight of memory against the promise of renewal. In the end, Christmas in the wizarding world answers its central question clearly. The truest light is not conjured, it is shared. It glows in the spaces between people, in the gifts they give, the songs they remember, the histories they carry, and the hands they reach for in the dark. And even as war draws near and the shadows lengthen, that human light remains, fragile but unwavering, waiting for the moment when the world is ready to bloom again. When winter settles over the Scottish Highlands, Hogwarts transforms more profoundly than any Muggle dwelling ever could. Snow gathers on the towers and turrets, softening their sharp silhouettes until the castle resembles a great slumbering beast beneath a shimmering white quilt. Yet inside, the air is warm, fragrant with pine, candle wax, and the faintest trace of cinnamon drifting up from the kitchens. Christmas here is not merely decoration, it is ritual. The castle seems to breathe differently in December, as though remembering something ancient. At the center of this transformation stands the Great Hall, a chamber that becomes the beating heart of Hogwarts' winter identity. Each year, Hagrid drags 12 towering Christmas trees into the hall, their branches brushing against the enchanted ceiling. No human, not even a wizard, could replicate the sheer scale of these evergreens. They glow with garlands of gold, drifts of shimmering frost, and baubles that hum faintly with magic. To step into the Great Hall during Christmas is to enter a place that refuses to obey the limits of the ordinary world. Above the trees, the enchanted ceiling reflects the night sky in perfect detail. Snowflakes drift downward in slow, dreamlike spirals, yet not a single one ever lands. The air remains warm, as if the very concept of cold has been politely asked to wait outside. The illusion is so gentle, you almost forget it is an illusion at all. It feels instead like Hogwarts has invited winter inside, only to tame it, to reassure its students that even the harshest season can be softened. Ribbons of light wrap around the upper arches of the hall, twisting like strands of starlight. Wreaths adorned with holly and red berries hang between banners of each house, and candles float overhead in their eternal procession. They do not flicker wildly, but glow with steady warmth, giving the impression that the Great Hall illuminates itself from within. This is the heart of the old winter rite. The castle does not simply celebrate Christmas, it performs it. But Hogwarts expresses its joy in subtler, quirkier ways too. The suits of armor lining the corridors, silent guardians for most of the year, begin to hum Christmas carols. Their voices are tinny and echoing as though reverberating from a distance, and they rarely get the lyrics right. Some pause halfway through a verse, others swap melodies entirely, yet the effect is endearing. It suggests that Hogwarts is not merely a structure, but a living, aging consciousness that tries its best to remember the songs of a world far older than its students. Even beyond the Great Hall, each common room becomes its own small universe of winter culture. Gryffindor Tower glows like a hearth, Its circular room, tucked high within one of the castle's tallest turrets, radiates warmth. A large fire crackles in the grate, throwing golden light over squashy armchairs and tapestries that sway ever so slightly in the draft. When the wind howls outside the windows, the tower feels even cozier, as though wrapping itself protectively around the students who stay for the holidays. Christmas in Gryffindor carries the energy of camaraderie, warmth shared among a few who remain behind. Slytherin, by contrast, embraces a colder, more elegant aesthetic. Nestled beneath the Black Lake, its walls shimmer with greenish reflections, their surfaces polished to a mirror-like sheen. Decorations here are minimalistic: silver garlands, emerald glass ornaments, perhaps a single tall candle burning steadily in the corner. It is a Christmas of restraint, steeped in tradition and aristocratic poise. The silence of the dungeons is not unfriendly, but contemplative, as though the house prefers to savor the season in stillness. Hufflepuff brings the warmth of a bustling kitchen into its celebration. Being closest to the heart of Hogwarts culinary life, the common room is always filled with comforting scents: fresh bread, vanilla sugar, pies cooling on the stone counters. Its Christmas decor is simple but inviting: golden fairy lights, fat candles dripping wax onto ceramic plates, and handmade ornaments crafted by students. Here Christmas feels less like a ritual and more like a lovingly maintained family custom. Ravenclaw Tower, perched high above the grounds, offers a different kind of beauty. Its windows reveal sweeping views of the snowy landscape, the forbidden forest glowing under a cold moon. The room feels airy, touched by winter wind, and its blue and bronze decorations mirror the night sky outside. Christmas here carries an air of reflection, a season for thought and quiet wonder. Even the whisper of turning pages becomes a part of the holiday's music. Taken together, these spaces reveal the deeper architectural truth of Hogwarts. The castle is not simply a school, it is the wizarding world's cathedral of winter, a place where ancient customs blend with youthful joy. Its towers, halls, and chambers are shaped not only by stone and spellcraft, but by centuries of collective memory. When Christmas arrives, these memories awaken. They fill the castle with light, song, warmth, and just enough mischief to remind everyone that magic, at its heart, is meant to comfort as much as it dazzles. On winter nights, when the candles float low and the snowfall outside deepens, Hogwarts becomes more than a setting. It becomes a testament to continuity, a sanctuary where no matter how dark the world might grow beyond its walls, the old rituals still shine, and in that glow, soft, golden, enduring, the students find something precious, not simply wonder, but belonging. If Hogwarts is the grand cathedral of the wizarding winter, then the burrow is its humble chapel, tilted, crooked, patched together with love and improvisation. Nestled among wild fields and wind-blown hedges, the Weasley home looks as though it should not be able to stand at all. Its upper floors lean precariously, as though contemplating collapse, and its chimneys puff uneven smoke into the crisp December air. Yet, against every architectural law, the burrow remains upright, sturdy in the way that only a place built on devotion rather than design can be. Stepping through its door during Christmas is like stepping into warmth itself. The house is small, cluttered, and beautifully alive. Scarves hang over chairs, spellbooks sit half open on tables, and mismatched boots pile beside the door. But instead of feeling cramped, the space feels deeply inhabited, lived in by people who care for one another with an ease that needs no embellishment. The moment the holiday season arrives, the burrow becomes a vibrant, bustling world of its own. Even the mischief here has its own charm. The garden gnomes, usually pests to be tossed over the hedge, are instead scooped up, stupefied, and transformed into makeshift ornaments, dangling awkwardly from branches or wobbling on the mantle. Their disgruntled expressions only add to the strange homemade charm of the Weasley Christmas aesthetic. Nothing is polished, nothing is perfect, and that imperfection is precisely what makes it beautiful. Inside, music drifts through the rooms, carried by the crackling wireless. Celestina Warbeck sings dramatic, swooning Christmas ballads, her voice filling every corner with warmth and a touch of gentle melodrama. Molly Weasley hums along while stirring a pot that smells of nutmeg and roasting meat. The wireless crackles occasionally, with static, with laughter, with someone shouting for Fred and George to stop enchanting the tinsel. Yet even the interruptions feel right. The house is not quiet, but it is alive. Christmas at the Burrow is never about spectacle. There are no enchanted ceilings, mimicking the night sky, no grand feasts appearing with a clap of hands, no ancient suits of armor humming carols. Instead, everything here is made by hand. Knitted sweaters, homemade mince pies, ornaments kept for sentimental value rather than aesthetic perfection. The warmth comes not from spells, but from presence, from people choosing to gather, to share, to inhabit the same humble space. For Harry, this house becomes a revelation. He first enters the burrow as a guest, but over time, he learns that its warmth is not reserved for those born into the Weasley name. The burrow offers him what Privet Drive never could, the casual intimacy of family life. A place where dinner is loud and chaotic, where affection is expressed through fussing and scolding, where siblings argue and laugh in equal measure. Here, Christmas is not a performance, it is a continuation of everyday love. One might say the very architecture of the burrow reflects this truth. The house looks ready to topple because it was never built with symmetry or precision in mind. Each extension came from necessity. Another room for a growing family, another nook crammed onto the side because someone needed space. It stands not because of expert craftsmanship, but because of the invisible glue of shared history. The real magic sustaining the burrow is not a spell, but affection. This is why Christmas feels so perfect here, despite the chaos. While Hogwarts dazzles the eye, the burrow nurtures the heart. Its cluttered rooms absorb the cold of winter and return only warmth. Its kitchen becomes an anchor point where everyone eventually gathers, human and magical creatures alike. Even the ghoul in the attic seems to rattle more joyfully during the holidays, as though he too refuses to be left out of the celebration. The burrow teaches a quiet lesson that stands in contrast to every grand magical display seen elsewhere in the wizarding world. Joy does not require power. Comfort does not require opulence. Sometimes the strongest form of magic is the simple act of being together. This truth becomes especially poignant for Harry, whose experience with family before Hogwarts was marked by neglect and coldness. At the burrow, he learns that love can be loud and flawed and cluttered and still completely real. In the broader tapestry of Christmas within the wizarding world, the burrow represents something precious, Christmas as homecoming. Not homecoming as a physical return, but as an emotional recognition that one belongs somewhere to someone. That laughter can fill the cracks in crooked walls, That warmth can overpower winter, even without a single spell. In a world woven with charms, enchantments, and ancient rituals, the burrow offers a reminder that some of the deepest forms of magic are handmade, stitched into sweaters, stirred into soup, tucked into the corners of a house that stands, impossibly yet faithfully, against the wind. And at Christmas, when candles glow in uneven windows, and Celestina Warbeck sings of love and longing, the burrow becomes the purest symbol of what the season means. A place where warmth triumphs over cold, where imperfections become endearments, and where for a moment the world feels like home. There are corners of the wizarding world where Christmas does not glow, but flickers dim, strained, struggling to survive the weight of memory and the shadow of conflict. These places reveal another truth about the season, that light is most fragile where darkness gathers, and that not every hearth burns warm in midwinter. To understand the world fully, we must walk through these quieter, heavier rooms. Grimmauld Place is the first of these. From the street, number 12 is hidden, pressed invisibly between its muggle neighbors, as though embarrassed to exist. Inside, the house feels older than its walls, like a relic preserved in cobwebs and disapproval. Dust clings to every surface, and the wallpaper seems to withdraw into itself, as if trying to escape from centuries of whispered arguments and family curses. During Christmas, the Weasleys make a brave attempt to brighten the space, stringing tinsel between the gas lamps, coaxing candles to burn a little warmer, draping garlands across the banister. But the house absorbs their efforts like a sponge absorbs water. Nothing shines here for long. The Black family's ancestral home radiates a particular kind of chill, the chill of inherited grief. Christmas at Grimmauld Place becomes a performative rebellion, a small battle fought against the oppressive weight of an unloved legacy. The decorations feel defiant rather than joyful, like sparks tossed into a cavern, and always beneath the surface lies the silent ache of Sirius Black, a man returned to a prison disguised as a childhood home. In December, the house hums with a tension that has nothing to do with cold weather and everything to do with the ghosts of a family that valued purity over love. In this space, Christmas becomes a reminder of what has been lost, rather than what can be celebrated. The fire crackles, but its warmth never seems to reach the corners. Conversations hover a little too close to silence. It becomes painfully clear that some places resist the season's brightness, not out of malice, but because years of sorrow have built walls thicker than stone. From Grimmauld Place, our path leads us to Godric's Hollow, a village touched by snow and history in equal measure. Here, Christmas is not bleak but solemn. The air is still, reverent. Footsteps sink quietly into fresh snow, muffling every movement. Beneath the moonlight, the gravestones glimmer like pages of an ancient script, each marking a life that shaped the story of the wizarding world. Harry's visit on Christmas Eve transforms the village into a place of ritual. The ruined cottage stands as a frozen moment in time, preserved by respect rather than restoration. Its walls, shattered by dark magic, hold no decorations, no laughter, no flicker of holiday warmth. And yet, the house radiates a quiet power, not the power of Christmas cheer, but the power of memory. Standing before the graves of his parents, Harry encounters the purest, simplest form of the season, remembrance. Godric's Hollow teaches us that Christmas can be an elegy, that sometimes the most honest celebration is a whispered acknowledgement of those who are absent. Here, the holiday sheds its glitter and reveals a deeper purpose, to give shape to grief and to allow the heart to touch the past without breaking. And then there is St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, where Christmas feels almost surreal. The corridors are bright, the walls scrubbed clean, the floors polished, but the atmosphere trembles with contradiction. Wreaths hang on the doors of wards, where patients sleep without waking, their minds trapped behind injuries no healer can reverse. Tinsel glitters under harsh medicinal light. Nurses murmur encouragement, their smiles stretching bravely across fatigue. In the spell damage ward, the contrast is most striking of all. A wreath on the door looks jarringly cheerful, as though unaware of the sorrow inside. Neville Longbottom's parents sit quietly in their hospital chairs, their eyes open yet unfocused. They do not notice the evergreen branches or the little red bow tied carefully to the frame. They do not hear the distant carol drifting faintly from a wireless on another floor. For them, Christmas is not a season, it is a date on a calendar they can no longer touch. Here, the holiday reveals another of its faces, the acknowledgement that not everyone can partake in joy. War has carved spaces where cheer becomes inappropriate, almost cruel. The architecture of the hospital itself, a structure designed for healing, strains under the weight of lives it cannot restore. Christmas decorations, instead of uplifting, serve as reminders of the wounds left behind by conflict. These darker places, though somber, are vital to the world's balance. They show that Christmas is not an unbroken ribbon of warmth, but a tapestry woven with both light and shadow. They deepen the meaning of every candlelit hall at Hogwarts, every burst of laughter at the Burrow, by showing the fragility of those joys. In Grimmauld Place, hope flickers against despair. In Godric's Hollow, memory softens loss. In St. Mungo's, compassion persists, even when recovery does not. Together, they remind us that Christmas in the wizarding world is not simply a season of celebration. It is a mirror, a reflection of where hearts stand, of what has been endured, and of the enduring human need to seek light, however faint, in the longest nights of the year. Across the 7 years of Harry's journey, Christmas becomes more than a holiday. It becomes a quiet chart of his inner world, marking shifts in identity, loss, and the slow, inevitable maturing of a boy who never asked to be a symbol. Each Christmas acts like a lantern placed along a winding path, illuminating how far he has come and how far he still must go. Through the warmth and the cold, the feasts and the silences, we trace the emotional arc of a child growing into a hero. In his earliest years at Hogwarts, Christmas feels almost miraculous. Harry steps into the season not as the boy who lived, but as a child encountering warmth for the first time. At Privet Drive, the holiday was a footnote, something happening to other people, something he was allowed to observe but never experience. The absence of love in that small, suffocating house had starved him of a sense of belonging. But at Hogwarts, everything changes. In his first Christmas, the Weasley jumper arrives like a revelation. Rough wool, warm colors, stitched with care by someone who barely knows him, yet already loves him. It is not glamorous, but it is full of meaning. That sweater is the first physical proof that he is wanted. And then comes the invisibility cloak, carrying the weight of a father's memory. It is both a gift and a whisper from the past, an invitation to explore not just the castle, but his own heritage. In the glow of these gifts, Harry glimpses what Christmas can be, a doorway into identity, lineage, and connection. By year 3, the holiday gains layers of complexity. The mirror of Erist still lingers in his memory, a reminder that even magical Christmases can awaken longing. The firebolt arrives not merely as a present, but as a symbol of trust, freedom, and a future shaped by choices rather than fate. During these early years, Christmas is still soft around the edges. It is warm food, laughter echoing through sparsely populated common rooms, surprise gifts, and the joy of friendship. Through these moments, Harry begins to understand what it means to belong to a world that welcomes him. But Christmas cannot remain untouched by the encroaching darkness forever. By year 4, the holiday shifts in tone. The Yule Ball introduces Harry to a world beyond childhood, one of politics, romance, jealousy, and growing responsibilities. While the ball dazzles with beauty and music, it also reveals the first fractures of adolescence, the sting of awkwardness, the weight of expectation, the tension between friends. Christmas is no longer simply comforting, it is complicated. Then comes year 5, when Christmas is overshadowed by fear. The attack on Arthur Weasley, seen through Harry's own mind, shatters the illusion that Hogwarts is a sanctuary. The holiday unfolds within the walls of Grimmauld Place, where the air is thick with secrecy and grief. Harry feels detached from those around him, convinced that he is a danger to the people he loves. The house itself mirrors his emotional state, dark, closed off, heavy with the burdens of the past. Christmas here becomes a warning bell, signaling the losses to come. This period marks the turning point. Christmas stops being a celebration and becomes a foreshadowing. Each year, the warmth dims, the shadows lengthen. The season no longer offers escape, but reflection, a reminder that innocence is slipping away. By the time we reach year 7, Christmas has transformed entirely. There is no feast, no tree, no great hall ceiling shimmering with protective magic. Instead, Harry stands in a snowy graveyard, the moon casting pale light over his parents' tomb. It is the quietest Christmas of his life. No laughter, no gifts, only truth. Here, the holiday becomes a ritual of mourning, a moment of recognition that the path he walks is bound to sacrifice. The destruction of his holly wand at Godric's Hollow deepens this turning point. It is more than the loss of a tool. It is the collapse of a childhood symbol, a severing of the last remnant of his first magical identity. In this moment, Christmas becomes not a source of comfort, but a crucible. The boy who once woke to presents and surprise feasts awakens instead to the reality that his fight can no longer be postponed. Yet, within this starkness lies a new strength. When Harry steps away from the graves, he carries with him a different kind of illumination, not the warm glow of festive candles, but the cold, steady light of resolve. Christmas, stripped of its enchantment, becomes a moment of clarity. He no longer seeks joy from the season. Instead, he finds purpose. The holiday teaches him a final lesson, that light does not always arrive in celebration. Sometimes it arrives in quiet acceptance, in remembrance, in the decision to continue despite the weight of history. Across these years, Christmas traces Harry's emotional evolution with remarkable precision. Camel Press from belonging to complexity, to grief, Weld Crow to responsibility. It is the silent chronicle of a hero's heart, marking where he has been and gently illuminating the path toward who he must become. In the long arc of the Wizarding World's winters, few stories are as quietly revealing as the evolving bond between Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. Their relationship grows not through grand declarations or dramatic duels, but through glances, awkward silences, and the unspoken currents that move between two people learning to understand one another. Christmas, with its warmth and its pressure, becomes the mirror that reflects these shifts year by year, season by season, until friendship slowly, inevitably tilts into something more. The turning point arrives during the Yule Ball, a night meant for celebration, yet remembered for its emotional upheaval. The hall is a spectacle of enchantment, glittering frost, ice sculptures, and a ceiling transformed into a winter wonderland. But for Ron and Hermione, beauty becomes backdrop to a deeper realization. They are no longer children, and the world of feelings is opening beneath their feet. Ron's jealousy, sharp and sudden, erupts when he sees Hermione enter with Victor Crumb. It is not simply envy of a famous Quidditch player. It is the confusion of a boy who has never examined his own heart. Hermione, radiant and self-assured for perhaps the first time, confronts a different pain, the disappointment of being valued only when someone else notices her first. Their argument is raw, clumsy, and honest. It marks the moment Christmas stops being a season of simple joy and becomes instead a stage on which their emotional complexities cannot be ignored. After that night, something shifts. The air between them thickens with the awareness that neither is as indifferent as they pretend. Christmas has performed its first act of revelation. In the years that follow, the holiday continues to function as a barometer measuring the distance between Ron and Hermione. Their feelings rarely align neatly. Instead, they move in uneven rhythms, as if learning a dance without music. During one Christmas, Ron finds himself entangled with Lavender Brown, a relationship loud, cheerful, and almost deliberately superficial. Hermione, meanwhile, accepts Cormac McLagan's advances, though her discomfort is palpable. Each choice is less about romance and more about navigating the ache of unspoken expectations. When these mismatched affections collide with the festive season, the contrast becomes impossible to overlook. At Slughorn's Christmas party, the tension between them hangs in the air like icy breath. Ron's arm around Lavender becomes heavier, exaggerated, as if insisting on a happiness he doesn't fully feel. Hermione's smiles are tight, brittle. Harry, caught between them, senses the imbalance but lacks the language to resolve it. The decorations, holly garlands, floating lanterns, soft instrumental carols, only amplify the awkwardness. Christmas, usually a balm, becomes a magnifying glass. The holiday exposes their emotional misalignment, not to embarrass them, but to push them forward. Beneath the bickering and jealousy lies something genuine. Two young people growing toward one another, hindered not by lack of affection, but by fear of vulnerability. And yet, Christmas also becomes a teacher of gentler lessons. As the war darkens the world around them, Ron and Hermione confront emotions sharper than adolescent jealousy. They face danger together, grieve together, and find comfort in one another during long winter nights when the scent of pine no longer promises safety. The holiday's warmth becomes an anchor, a reminder that even in the coldest years, connection persists. Christmas, in this context, becomes a quiet test of maturity. It asks them, can you see each other clearly, not as ideals nor as irritations, but as people flawed, frightened, hopeful? Through trials both small and life-changing, Ron and Hermione learn to answer yes. Gradually, the season becomes less about what divides them and more about what holds them together. Hermione begins to understand Ron's insecurities, not as weaknesses, but as shadows cast by a large, loving family in which he sometimes feels invisible. Ron begins to recognize Hermione's strength, not as bossiness or brilliance alone, but as a deep well of loyalty that has always included him. Their quarrels remain, as all real relationships have them, but the meaning behind those quarrels softens. By the time their journey nears its end, Christmas ceases to highlight their distance and begins to illuminate their bond. They have stumbled, misunderstood each other, wounded and comforted each other in turn. But these are the very experiences that make their connection real. Christmas, once a stage for jealousy, becomes instead a symbol of endurance, a reminder that love forged in ordinary moments, awkward parties, late-night arguments, quiet reconciliations, can withstand even the darkest winters. In the wizarding world, Christmas often marks the boundaries between innocence and experience, between what was and what will be. For Ron and Hermione, the holiday traces the delicate line between friendship and something far deeper. Before they can become a family, they must first learn the truth that Christmas reveals most clearly, that to love someone, to love is to accept their imperfections, and to grow alongside their uncertainties, and to recognize the quiet miracle of choosing one another in a world that offers no guarantees. Draco Malfoy's Christmases form a stark counterpoint to Harry's, Ron's, and Hermione's, where their holidays speak of warmth, discovery, or emotional turbulence. Draco's winter seasons reveal a different story, one where privilege masks insecurity and celebration becomes a tool for asserting dominance. In Draco's world, Christmas is never simply a holiday. It is a stage, polished to a mirror shine, designed to display pedigree, influence, and the illusion of unshakable power. In his early years, Draco treats Christmas as an extension of Malfoy Manor's grandeur. He bragged about the gifts he received, not out of cruelty alone, but because this was what he had been taught Christmas meant. Presents were not markers of affection, they were indicators of lineage. A broomstick, a luxurious cloak, a piece of enchanted jewelry, each object became evidence of status, proof that he belonged to a family at the top of the wizarding hierarchy. At school, his boasts were not merely tales of wealth. They were challenges, statements, announcements of superiority. For the Malfoys, the holiday season was a pageant. The manor, with its cold marble floors and echoing halls, transformed into a space designed to impress. Towering trees trimmed with silver, charmed icicles glowing faintly along arched windows, garlands threaded with tiny serpentine ornaments. Guests of high social standing would visit, exchanging stately gifts and thin smiles. Christmas here served a social function. It reinforced alliances, solidified reputations, and reminded the wizarding world who still held influence. But even in those early years, if one looked closely, there was a chill beneath the opulence. Christmas in the Malfoy household was more about appearance than joy. Draco learned early to measure his worth not by affection, but by how loudly he could project confidence in the wealth surrounding him. That was the true inheritance he received, not love, but expectation. Then the world shifted. By the time Draco reached his 6th year, Christmas had lost all pretense of luxury. With Voldemort restored, Malfoy Manor no longer symbolized aristocratic pride. It had become a fortress of fear, a headquarters where dark decisions were made and where failure carried deadly consequences. Draco did not return home for the holiday that year. Instead, he stayed at Hogwarts, slipping away into the Room of Requirement to work tirelessly on the Vanishing Cabinet, his reluctant assignment from Voldemort. The castle glowed with its usual December enchantments. The great hall shimmered with gold and silver. Students laughed. Snow drifted in delicate patterns above their heads. But Draco moved like a shadow between these scenes, untouched by warmth. His Christmas that year was one of isolation, long hours spent alone, the only light coming from the flicker of spells cast in desperation. The world outside celebrated, but his world had narrowed to a single task he had no choice but to complete, a burden too heavy for a 16-year-old boy. Fear replaced pride, pressure replaced confidence. The once grand tradition of Malfoy Christmases, polished and powerful, fractured into silence. Draco's loneliness during the holiday season reflects not only his personal turmoil, but also the transformation of the Malfoy family itself. Once dominant, they were now prisoners of their own alliances, bowing under the weight of the very power they had sought to align with. This shift mirrors the broader decline of the wizarding world. The brighter the decorations at Hogwarts, the darker the reality growing beyond its walls. Draco becomes a symbol of this imbalance, a reminder that privilege offers no protection when darkness spreads. His Christmas in Year 6 reveals a painful truth. Even those raised with every comfort can find themselves standing alone when fear overtakes ambition. By Year 7, Draco's holiday experience aligns even more closely with the world's unraveling. Malfoy Manor, once a symbol of wealth, becomes a prison and a battleground. Its Christmas decorations, if they exist at all, carry no meaning. The house is a place of hostage-taking, tension, and whispered commands. Any semblance of festivity is overshadowed by the reality that the Malfoys are now tools of Voldemort, not hosts of the wizarding elite. In this way, Draco's Christmases serve as a mirror for the state of the wizarding world. When he boasts, the world still holds its fragile order. When he hides in the shadows, that order crumbles. When his home becomes a site of fear, the world stands at the brink of collapse. His journey through these winters reveals more than personal decline. It reveals the truth beneath the surface of privilege, that power without compassion breeds emptiness, and ambition forged in fear becomes a chain rather than a crown. Draco's Christmas experiences are not moments of celebration, but milestones marking the erosion of a world built on hierarchy and illusion. Through him, we see a holiday stripped of warmth, reduced to a bare structure of expectations and consequences, and when darkness rises, even the manor's silver ornaments lose their shine. Christmas in Draco's story is the moment when the shadows of the wizarding world become undeniable, when even the brightest lights serve only to illuminate how deep the darkness has grown. In the end, Draco's winter journey is not one of joy or revelation, but of reckoning, a reminder that no family, no legacy, no wealth can shield one from the cold truth of war, and that sometimes the brightest celebrations cast the darkest shadows. In the wizarding world, Christmas is far more than a season of garlands and warmth. It is a hinge in the calendar, an invisible threshold where the world grows quieter. The veil between destiny and daily life thins, and long-buried truths rise gently into view. While the Muggle world celebrates with tradition and festivity, the fabric of magical reality softens during this winter moment, allowing fate to move with unusual clarity. Many of the most pivotal moments in Harry Potter's journey occur on or around Christmas, as if drawn to this still point where the year turns and the world pauses, listening. The first of these moments occurs in Harry's very first year, when he unwraps the invisibility cloak. At first glance, it seems a marvelously cool gift, the kind any 11-year-old might dream of. But the cloak carries far more weight than its enchanted fabric suggests. It is a relic of the Potter lineage, a quiet whisper from a father Harry never knew, and a key that unlocks a new relationship with the castle itself. With the cloak, Harry crosses from innocence into exploration. He slips into forbidden corridors, glimpses hidden truths, and begins charting his own path outside the boundaries set for him. Christmas becomes the threshold of independence, his first step into self-guided destiny. In his third year, Christmas again acts as a subtle conduit for prophecy. During the holiday feast, Professor Trelawney hesitates at the threshold of the Great Hall, refusing to sit where 12 already dine. Her eerie warning, "If I join you, we shall be 13, and the first to rise will be the first to die," echoes like a superstition at first, the sort of thing easily dismissed as eccentricity. Yet the rule of 13 binds itself to the narrative in ways only hindsight can reveal. Lupin rises first. Later, in a different context, Sirius rises first. Christmas reveals not the entire truth, but a symbol, a shard of fate refracted through ritual. In this way, the holiday becomes the place where destiny leaks into everyday conversation, disguised as a harmless remark. By Harry's 5th year, the innocence of magical Christmases collapses entirely. What was once a season of warmth becomes a season of foreboding. Arthur Weasley, attacked by Voldemort's serpent, through the strange psychic connection Harry unwillingly shares with the Dark Lord, lies wounded in St. Mungo's. Harry sees the attack unfold through Voldemort's eyes, blurring the line between victim and villain. Christmas at Grimmauld Place that year is not festive, it is haunted. The season is stained by war, and the Weasley family's brush with death becomes a chilling reminder that the conflict has breached even the safest havens. Christmas has shifted from gift-giving to omen-giving. In Harry's 7th year, Christmas marks the darkest point of all. Godric's Hollow lies under a blanket of snow, untouched and eerily silent. Harry's visit to the grave of his parents transforms the holiday into a ritual of mourning. The destruction of his wand, the holly wand that had been his companion since childhood, deepens the symbolic blow. It is his lowest point, the moment when the hero's journey collapses inward. Christmas becomes the embodiment of the year's longest night, a place where light is nearly extinguished and where hope seems perilously distant. Yet, as with all solstices, the darkness marks the turning point. From this moment, the story begins its slow ascent back toward light. What ties these events together is their timing. They do not occur randomly. They surface at Christmas because Christmas in the wizarding world is a metaphysical low tide. As the magical world settles into stillness, the boundaries that normally separate past from present, fear from prophecy, and individual choice from collective destiny begin to dissolve. The world becomes permeable, softened by quiet, opened by ritual. It is during this liminal space that truths long hidden finally find room to emerge. Prophecies whisper, secrets surface, shadows stretch longer, and heroes face themselves in ways they cannot any other time of year. This phenomenon is not unique to Harry. It is woven into the world itself. Christmas functions as the energetic trough of the wizarding calendar, the moment when magic is subdued enough that other forces, older and deeper, can rise. Fate slips its hand more easily into events. Coincidence and intention blur. The smallest actions reveal the largest consequences. A cloak becomes a call to adventure. A superstition becomes prophecy. A snakebite becomes a warning. A broken wand becomes rebirth. In this sense, Christmas is both a still point and a crossroads, a moment where many paths converge, where the future presses close to the present, and where characters find themselves standing on the threshold of transformation. When the world quiets, destiny speaks, and so the Wizarding Christmas becomes less about celebration and more about recognition, a time when the story pauses just long enough for its deeper currents to surface, a time when heroes are nudged toward their next steps, a time when the darkest night signals not an ending, but the slow return of light. In the wizarding world, Christmas is not defined by its festivities alone, but by the objects that quietly shape its emotional landscape. Every gift, every enchanted trinket, every handmade token carries a weight far beyond its physical form. These items act as repositories of memory, identity, heritage, and belonging, small yet potent vessels of meaning. Through them, Christmas becomes a symbolic language, a conversation spoken not through words, but through gestures, textures, and magic that lingers softly in the hands of those who receive it. The Weasley jumper is perhaps the most iconic of these symbols. Knitted from yarn that scratches slightly at the wrists and smells faintly of the Burrow's kitchen, it is not elegant or powerful by wizarding standards, yet it may be the most emotionally significant object Harry receives in his early years. Molly Weasley does not craft these sweaters to impress. She creates them as manifestations of unconditional affection. Each stitch is an act of care, each initial knitted across the chest a quiet affirmation, "You belong to us." For Harry, who grew up in a home that offered him no warmth, the jumper becomes more than clothing. It becomes proof that family can be chosen, that love can be extended without demand. Christmas at Hogwarts, through this single gift, transforms into a ritual of emotional adoption. The sweater marks Harry, not as the celebrated boy who lived, but as a boy welcomed into the Weasley circle, a child worthy of warmth and softness. In this way, the jumper is not merely fabric, it is a reweaving of Harry's identity. The invisibility cloak carries an even deeper symbolic resonance. When Harry unwraps it in his first year, he does not yet understand its lineage, but instinctively senses its significance. It is the first gift he ever receives from his father, a connection stretched across death and time. The cloak envelops him in the very protection James Potter once offered his family. It becomes a physical memory, a shield, a guide. On a narrative level, the cloak symbolizes agency. With it, Harry begins crossing boundaries, both literal and emotional. He explores quiet halls after curfew, uncovers secrets, and faces truths that others would have kept hidden. Yet beneath the adventure lies a quieter meaning. Christmas becomes the moment Harry's ancestral story awakens. The cloak whispers that he is not alone, that he carries a legacy capable of shaping his path. It teaches him that heritage is not a burden, but a light passed from one heartbeat to the next. Then there are the wizard crackers, loud, chaotic, utterly illogical artifacts that defy the gentle sophistication of Muggle holiday traditions. They explode not with dull bangs, but with showers of sparks, strange trinkets, and oversized hats that wobble on the heads of even the most dignified professors. On the surface, they are comic relief, but symbolically, they reveal something essential about wizarding culture, its refusal to be constrained by ordinary expectations. In these crackers, the magical world asserts its identity. Christmas in Hogwarts is not a replication of Muggle custom. It is an adaptation infused with whimsy, unpredictability, and a touch of rebellious delight. The crackers reflect a collective cultural spirit, mischievous, lively, and resistant to conformity. They remind students and teachers alike that magic thrives in surprise, and that joy can be unruly without losing sincerity. Beyond these iconic objects, an entire constellation of smaller gifts enriches the emotional fabric of the season. Chocolate frogs tucked into stockings, a flute handcrafted by Hagrid, cards decorated with moving images, a box of every flavor beans that might contain either delight or disaster. Each item, however humble, carries symbolic threads: friendship, gratitude, shared experience, and the simple pleasure of being remembered. These objects function as emotional anchors. They ground characters and communities that sustain them. Houses, friendships, families formed by choice or circumstance. A small gift can mark the moment someone is seen, valued, or welcomed. It can reinforce identity or reveal a facet of character. These tokens weave invisible ties between people, stitching their stories together across years and battles. Taken collectively, the objects of Wizarding Christmas reveal a profound truth. Magic does not reside solely in spells or enchantments. It resides in meaning, in the intentions behind the knitted sweater, the legacy wrapped in shimmering cloth, the laughter that erupts when a cracker yields a ridiculous hat. Through these items, Christmas becomes not an external spectacle, but an internal ritual, shaping how characters understand themselves and one another. In the quiet glow of holiday lights, these objects stand as reminders that the wizarding world is sustained not by power, but by connection. And in the darkest winters, it is these small symbolic gifts that keep the heart of magic alive. To truly understand Christmas in the wizarding world, one must look beyond the glitter of enchanted garlands and the warmth of floating candles. The celebration that witches and wizards call Christmas shares little with Muggle religion. It has no nativity scenes, no hymns of divine birth, no church bells marking the dawn of salvation. Instead, the wizarding Christmas draws its breath from something far older, older than Hogwarts, older than the Ministry, older even than the founding families who shaped magical society. Its true roots lie in the winter solstice and the ancient rites of Yule. Long before anyone whispered the name Harry Potter, wizards and magical folk gathered around evergreen branches, bonfires, and starlit rituals to honor the turning of the year. The solstice marked the moment when the night reached its greatest length and the sun its weakest strength, a cosmic pause, a sacred exhale. For magical communities, this moment was not symbolic, but tangible. Magic itself thinned in winter, dimming like a lantern, struggling against the wind. And so the earliest wizarding celebrations were not about joy or feasting. They were about survival, preservation, and the protection of light. Hogwarts, though built centuries later, retains the echoes of these ancient customs. The name Christmas is borrowed from the Muggle world, but the meaning beneath it remains deeply pagan. When the great hall is adorned with floating candles, when evergreens stretch toward the enchanted sky, when snow falls gently without coldness, these are not mere decorations. They are protective rituals, enchantments, a way for the castle to shield its inhabitants from the metaphysical darkness pressing against the edges of winter. Winter is the season when boundaries soften. The line between the physical and the intangible grows thin, like frost melting against a warm window. Memories rise with surprising clarity, as if summoned by the season itself. Harry's encounters with the Mirror of Eris, his walk through Godric's Hollow, and the prophetic murmurs that surface around Christmas are not coincidences. They are symptoms of the solstice, the moment when magic flickers low enough that deeper energies slip through. In this weakened state, the world becomes strangely porous. Unfinished stories drift upward. Prophecies whisper with sharper edges. Destiny reaches forward with a hand that cannot normally pass through the veil of everyday magic. Christmas in the wizarding world is, therefore, a liminal space, a doorway between what is and what might be. This is why so many pivotal events unfold around this time. A cloak passed from father to son, a prophecy disguised as superstition, an attack that pierces the heart of a family, a wand breaking in the snow. Each occurrence is not random, but drawn toward the gravitational pull of the solstice, where truth is more easily revealed and fate more easily enacted. But the holiday is also a battleground, a yearly clash between light and shadow, fought not with wands, but with tradition, ritual, and community. Hogwarts understands this instinctively. Its floating candles are more than aesthetic, they are magical counterweights. Its starry ceiling is not a feast day flourish, but a symbolic assertion. Even if the sky outside grows darker, the sky inside will remain bright. Wreaths, enchanted frost, glowing fir trees, all these are enchantments designed to fortify the spirit, to remind young witches and wizards that hope must be tended like a flame. In times of peace, these rituals seem charming. In times of war, as during Harry's school years, they become acts of defiance. The wizarding world cannot stop the winter. It cannot stop prophecy, loss, or the long shadow cast by Voldemort's return. But through its Yule-rooted traditions, it resists surrendering to despair. Every candle lit in the Great Hall is a promise. Every evergreen is a reminder that life endures even in the coldest season. Christmas becomes not merely a celebration, but a stance, a declaration that darkness will not have the final word. And then there is the Yule Ball. To students, it is a glamorous evening of gowns, lights, and awkward first dances. But beneath the glitter lies the fragment of an ancient ritual. The Yule, in its name, is not decorative, it is literal. Long ago, magical communities held midwinter gatherings to honor cycles of destruction and renewal. They dressed in their finest robes not to impress, but to invoke prosperity. They danced not solely for pleasure, but as symbolic enactments of life returning to a darkened world. Hogwarts preserves this history, even as students experience the ball through the lens of adolescence. The ball is a relic of a time when wizards danced, not because they were carefree, but because they were afraid and needed to remind themselves of resilience. Thus, wizarding Christmas is never merely festive. It is cyclical. It is protective. For it is ancestral. It stands at the intersection of joy and fear, of memory and prophecy, of endings and beginnings. And in that delicate balance, the wizarding world finds its strength. Through ancient Yule traditions wrapped in the language of Christmas, wizards and witches reaffirm, year after year, the same quiet truth that even when winter is at its darkest, light, however small, must be kept alive. Inhale and imagine the world softening around you. The snow outside your window falls in slow, silent drifts, each flake a tiny lantern of winter light. Now allow that snowfall to carry you elsewhere, to a corridor of ancient stone, cool beneath your fingertips, where Hogwarts breathes in rhythm with the night. Inhale deeply and picture yourself stepping through the great hall. Above you, enchanted snowflakes descend, shimmering with pale silver glow, yet they never touch your skin, never melt upon your shoulders. They simply drift like memories suspended in time. Tall fir trees rise on either side, their branches dusted with golden sparkles from floating candles. Every light reflects softly against the polished floor, creating warm ripples of illumination that move when you do. Hold your breath gently, they just long enough to notice the stillness. Before you, Hogwarts seems to listen, as if the castle itself is aware of your arrival. Each stone, shaped by centuries of footsteps and stories, remembers a different Christmas, whispers of laughter, of carols, of warmth during long winters. Let yourself stand in that awareness. The hall is vast, but the quiet is intimate, like a secret kept just for you. A faint glow spills through the windows, tinted blue by the icy night, and the scent of pine settles around you like a cloak. Now, allow your mind to wander toward the smaller corners of the castle. Perhaps you picture the Gryffindor common room glowing with firelight, or the Slytherin dungeons shimmering with soft green reflections from the lake. Maybe you imagine the Ravenclaw Tower, high above the grounds, where the moon paints silver patterns on ancient books, or the Hufflepuff basement, warm and golden, where the smell of cinnamon pastries lingers in the air. Wherever your thoughts drift, follow them. Hogwarts is large, but in this moment, it opens its doors gently, offering you any room you wish to rest in. Hold this moment. Let your breath settle into the hush of the castle. And now, exhale slowly with your breath. Release the weight of your day. Let the sound of distant carols echo softly from the suits of armor, their imperfect harmonies carrying a charm only age can give. Let that quirky, warm chorus guide you deeper into the memory of Hogwarts, the kind of memory that does not belong to one lifetime, but to the place itself. Picture the candles drifting overhead, each flame swaying gently as though responding to your breath. The castle seems to glow from within, a quiet, ancient heartbeat beneath layers of snow. With every exhale, surrender a little more to the stillness. With every inhale, allow the magic to settle around you, soft, comforting, familiar. You are walking through a school that has existed for 1,000 years, yet tonight it feels like it exists only for you. The halls no longer echo with hurried footsteps or whispered spells. They hold only warmth, only quiet, only the promise of rest. And breathe once more, deeply, and let Hogwarts wrap you in its winter embrace, an embrace of candlelight, memory, and gentle shimmering snow. In the wizarding world, Christmas reveals a simple truth. Light is born, not from spells, but from the bonds we choose, the memories we keep, and the kindness we share. Even as war shadows the horizon, these quiet rituals protect what is human in the heart of magic. Hogwarts, the Burrow, Godric's Hollow, Each asks us the same question: what light do we carry when darkness draws near? Thank you for wandering through these winter nights with me. If the wind brushes your window tonight, perhaps it is Hogwarts whispering one last story. Sleep well, Fairman and Emble, in a world where light always finds its way back.